We mentioned this at the top of the broadcast. Paul Manafort is responding tonight to a rather scathing sentencing memo filed by the Mueller team on Friday in Washington, D.C. federal court. In this new document, federal prosecutors say Manafort repeatedly and brazenly violated the law and that he continued to break laws well into the fall of 2018. Tonight, Manafort's lawyers filed their own memo that reads in part, and we quote, "As the government itself notes, Mr. Manafort committed garden variety crimes and violated the more esoteric Foreign Agents Registration Act." They go on to say, quote, "The defendant has not been charged with any crimes related to the primary focus of the special counsel's investigation, i.e. any links and or coordination between the Russian government and individuals associated with the campaign of President Donald Trump, otherwise referred to as Russian collusion by the national media." And let's throw in the president there. Nevertheless, these garden variety and esoteric offenses have led to Mr. Manafort being widely vilified in a manner that this country has not experienced in decades. Now, Manafort, through his lawyers, also said he deserves a sentence significantly below the 10-year maximum. The Mueller sentencing memo that was released on Saturday said Manafort's criminal actions were, quote, bold and, quote, his deceit, which is a fundamental component of the crimes of conviction and relevant conduct, extended to tax preparers, bookkeepers, banks, the Treasury Department, the Department of Justice, National Security Division, the FBI, the Special Counsel's Office, the grand jury, his own legal counsel, members of Congress, and members of the executive branch of the United States government. Well, with us to talk about it, Chris Megarian, reporter for the L.A. Times, who covers the special counsel investigation. And we have prevailed upon veteran federal prosecutor Berit Berger to stick around with us for just a few more minutes. And, Counselor, I'd like to begin with you. What should our takeaway be from this document, not counting the black lines of redaction, 800 pages in all, give or take?
Yeah, I mean, the special counsel's office wasn't holding anything back in the sentencing memo. I mean, there was no sort of measured language about, well, he did come in, he tried to help. I mean, they really put it all out there. This was about as, strident of a sentencing memo as you're going to get in this kind of a case. They talk about crimes that he committed, that led up to this, the ways that he tried to then tamper with witnesses to affect the investigation, and then the lies that they told during his attempts to cooperation. So, I mean, he really hit every element of criminality here in this investigation, and they go through in really painstaking detail to lay all this out. They
also had the option they can do aggravating circumstances and mitigating. Some nice things about the nothing in the mitigating category.
Right, and that's what's significant. I mean, there are arguably some mitigating factors here. I mean, he is, 70-something years old, and, he is facing a very long time in prison. But the special counsel's office was very clear in this sentencing memo. They said there are no mitigating factors that should cause this court to give Mr. Manafort a lenient sentence here.
All right, Chris, take us up to tonight. What should the takeaway be from the Manafort lawyer response document?
Well, it's totally the opposite from what prosecutors put out. I mean, basically, it's all mitigating factors, a lot of personal history, how Paul Manafort has been a good father, a good brother, a good uncle, things he's done for the community. They paint a very rosy picture of his work as an overseas political consultant, leaving out many of the dictators that he advised, and merely saying that he promoted American values abroad. And basically say that his crimes were not that serious and he should get a break from the judge.
And Berit, when the feds hear that, can that be antagonistic toward them? Because, after all, as you point out, his future is in their hands.
Yeah, I think this kind of a sentencing memo or a response by the Manafort team, it can backfire. I mean, one of the worries here is that a judge reads this and says, this defendant does not really seem to be accepting responsibility here. This defendant is minimizing their crimes, not showing an appropriate level of remorse, and that can often backfire for criminal defendants. Oftentimes the better approach is to say, look, I did these crimes. Maybe there were some circumstances out there, but I did them. I take responsibility. I'm committed to sort of changing my life going forward, to sort of fall on the mercy of the court. And that's not what we saw the Manafort team doing here.
Chris, every time the president says no collusion, we do our level best to point out that per se collusion is not a crime, and yet one of the things they list is that they haven't found evidence of collusion.
Well, I think what they're trying to point out is that Paul Manafort has not been accused of any crimes relating to Russian interference in the election. And that's true. He's not been. That was why Robert Mueller was appointed. He has not charged Americans with conspiring with Russians to affect the election. And I think what the lawyers are trying to say is, well, if Robert Mueller hasn't achieved what he set out to do on the conspiracy angle, you can kind of not take the rest of the stuff that seriously because it's just garden variety crimes. Whereas what really prosecutors have outlined is a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme spanning years that is a very serious white-collar offense.
Let's play how the president's comments about Paul Manafort have, let's say, migrated over time.
Now, Paul Manafort's a nice guy, but, he worked for me for a very short period of time, literally for, a couple of months? Little period of time.
Like Manafort has nothing to do with our campaign. But I feel I feel a little badly about it. They went back 12 years to get things that he did 12 years ago. Paul Manafort worked for me for a very short period of time.
I must tell you that Paul Manafort's a good man. He was with Ronald Reagan. He was with a lot of different people over the years, and I feel very sad about that. It doesn't involve me, but I still feel, it's a very sad thing that happens. This has nothing to do with Russian collusion.
He was chairman of the campaign, Barrett Berger, worked for him, as you heard, just a short period of time, lived in Trump Tower, offered to work for free, former partner of Roger Stone. Could you make a case that you hear there the sadness, the sympathy, the underpinnings of a potential argument for a pardon?
Yeah, and I think that's one argument that you could see the Manafort team making in this letter. One argument is perhaps this letter wasn't actually for the court. Perhaps this letter was really painting a narrative, making the case for a pardon. Obviously, that's in the president's discretion. The president has the right to pardon Paul Manafort if he thinks that truly was treated unfairly. I think it gets harder to swallow that, though, when you look at really the litany of crimes that he committed as detailed by the special counsel's office in their sentencing memo. And that may be one of the reasons they went into such painstaking detail of laying out all of the crimes, all of the times that he lied, all the efforts that he went to try to cooperate, and then how that sort of imploded, is to say this is not somebody who was just caught up in a witch hunt. This was somebody who was really a systematic liar for over a decade and really deserves to be held accountable.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.